So who am I? I'm a 21-year-old guy from the Netherlands. I study in Rotterdam. I've been playing chess for quite a while, since I was 8 years old. Became an international master at 14 and a grandmaster at 16. At the time, I was the youngest chess grandmaster in the Netherlands. That record has been broken, so let's not talk about that too much. So I want to talk a little bit before I go to the game over here. Being a professional chess player in Europe is a little different than being a professional chess player in the US. There's two major differences. When you go to a tournament and you're a grandmaster, most of the time the European tournaments are going to offer you a kind of a sponsorship. They're going to pay for your flight, your hotel, in many cases, or at least your hotel. And a lot of your expenses are covered, sometimes meals as well and so on. Well, in the US, that's not really the case. If you go to an open tournament, it's like the jungle, right? I've only played one US tournament. Well, I had to take my own board, and that also doesn't happen in Europe. So there's quite a big difference in the tournament play. But also we have leagues. We have lots of chess leagues in Europe. So as a chess professional, what you like to do is to play some leagues, because then you go there for a weekend, you play a couple of games, your team pays you for that, and it's nice. You meet a lot of colleagues, and you don't always have to play against everyone. You also have people on your side. So that's a nice thing. And I play in quite a few leagues. I play in the Dutch league, the Belgian league, the German league, the Icelandic league. So I have all these leagues, and you try to get into as many as possible because it's fun and it's nice. This one was played in the German league. Now this is actually a new team for me. This was this year, and so I'm the new guy in the team. A lot of pressure, but it went pretty good for me. So I'm playing for one of the best teams in the league, I would say, Solingen. For the last 10 years. The German Bundesliga has been won by Baden-Baden, so they're like dominating the league, right? These guys are really good. They have almost only 2,700 players, and our team is doing really, really well. We're beating everyone. We're beating, teams that are slightly stronger than us. We're beating teams that are slightly weaker, but we're beating everyone, so we're in first place. And then comes the day on a Sunday that we have to play Baden-Baden, so it's really exciting. Big match, might very well decide the winner of the whole league. Problem one, the league on Sunday starts at 9 a.m. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not the best chess player at 9 a.m. Problem two, I won a pretty lucky game on Saturday. So I've announced to my team, because I've been playing really well in this league and I'm really pumped up for this match. I've announced that I'm going to win the game. I'm saying, guys, I got this. I'm going to play some 2,700 players, some really strong grandmaster. Kind of had an idea who I was going to play, because normally you show up on Saturday with a team and you play in the afternoon, and most teams play with the same team on Sunday. Well, you can sort of you see where this is going, right? So I'm expecting to play some guy who didn't really play a very good game on Saturday, and I'm confident. I'm saying, okay guys, he's the weak player. We're talking like former world champion over here, so a little bit optimistic, but I think okay, I have a chance against this guy. I have white, and I prepared. Everything's good. I show up at 9 a.m. Well, not really. It was a little bit later than 9 a.m., but excuse me, right? So I show up a little bit later than 9 a.m. and I see the guy sitting. So I walk up to the board, but then I see there's already one of my teammates sitting. So what's going on, right? So I look a little bit forward. I'm very sleepy at this point, and I see Levon Aronian and Viswanathan Anand sitting. Well, those guys play in the Singfield Cup. I'm not that level, right? But suddenly, from Saturday to Sunday, these guys fly in, and they're ready. They're ready to beat us, right? We're first in the league. So I'm playing someone completely different. I'm playing Radoslaw Wojtaszek, and I've already lost a game previously to him. And what I like about chess is it's really nice to win a game. It's even better to get revenge. And this is a story of revenge. Now, for those who were at my previous lecture, unfortunately the people online couldn't see it. I start out, I'm kind of thinking, what should I show to people? So I go to my own database, right? I'm just like, okay, highest ratings. I'm scrolling and scrolling, like, oh, I beat this guy. So there we go. Here, I beat a 2,700 player. Not really, but in the previous lecture, I showed my game against Ding Liren that I won. So this is another story. I promise I'm going to humble myself a little bit this time. I'm going to briefly show you the game that I lost to this guy, just to get an impression of my mindset during this game, right? So normally I play e4. Now the people here can see I started with c4, so there's already something strange about that. Let's see what happened to me being a theoretical player. I like theory. I like to enter lines that are complicated, that you analyze with the computer a lot. Unfortunately, my opponent from Poland, the #1 in Poland, he's kind of playing like me in a way, except that he's a little bit better at everything, especially in the opening. So this game, this happened around a year before we're playing now in the Bundesliga. So we're entering some Sicilian. The details are not really important. Some line. I was very confident. I analyzed this a lot. I spent hours and hours analyzing this variation, right? So all's good. This is all my analysis, and suddenly this guy plays this move, queen to c7. So I'm thinking like, okay, clearly my idea is to go d4, right? I mean, want to capture the center. So I'm sitting there for a bit. I'm like, well, I don't know, queen c7. Like, why don't you try to develop your other pieces? You're not supposed to play with the queen so early on in the game. So I go d4, take, and then play d4. And then he plays this move, rook c8. And now I'm thinking to myself, like, geez, that's attacking my bishop, but okay, that shouldn't be a problem. Now, mind you, this was also a morning game, so this explains my state of mind a little bit. So I'm like, okay, he's attacking my bishop. I'm gonna take it out. And then this move happens in the morning as well. And after bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, I want to take with my rook, right? That's a piece. Oops. And there it is, I'm lost. So I played some other moves, and to be fair, other games have followed this after I fell for this, and it's not all that bad. But let's just say black is a little bit better out of the opening, and I'm playing a very strong player. So this was kind of a sad story. And now I'm facing him again in the morning, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I do? So emergency plan, playing one c4. Now I don't want to say that I had some kind of great strategy over here, and it was like a masterpiece, but what I do like about this game is that, to my mind, what sets apart the very best players from, I don't want to say guys like me, but let's say strong grandmasters, 2,600 players, is very often they manage to retain a little bit of tension in positions that are almost equal. So even if they're not better, or if they don't really have an advantage, they manage to play moves in which the opponent can not just liquidate to a drawn position, and they keep doing that and doing that. And very often people do make mistakes. And when I think about Carlsen, that's one of the ways he wins all the time. He doesn't necessarily get advantages out of the opening, and he manages to win anyway. And mostly because of this, he's outplaying people from equal positions. Now, that's not normally what happens to me. I try to get an advantage from the opening, and then I try to take it from there, win the game, especially when I'm playing grandmasters of this level. So I played c4. I don't have that much knowledge here. And as you can probably guess, this is one of the few examples where I did manage to play quite a good game. And I did manage to turn something very small into a win. So what we have over here is, it's kind of a hybrid of a Catalan. So my bishop's really nice, but the difference is that I haven't moved my pawn from d2 to d4 yet. So I'm kind of flexible. On the other hand, I allow black to capture the center with d4 as well. But having played the Benoni myself, that was not my biggest worry. So I played b3 over here. I can play d4 here. Of course, it's the Catalan. It's a big opening. But once again, I'm not really a d4 player. I'm not really familiar with all this stuff. So I gotta try to stay a little bit more within the range that I understand. So b3. If d4 here, okay, we get sort of a Benoni-like position. So something like this. Something like this. And I didn't have all that much knowledge here, but it's a structure that I understand. I've played these kind of positions with black. To give you an example, put the rook on e1, play d3, something like knight a3, knight b5, or knight a3, knight c2. At least the plans here are familiar to me, and I'm not going to lose my central pawn like I did in the last game. So hey, it can't be all that bad. It's a little bit better than last time. So I was ready for this, and my opponent played c5. Now bishop b2. Still, if he goes d4, I mean, this is theory. It's very playable for both sides. Knight to c6. Now this is kind of a problem. I mean, I can play e3 over here. I think people do play this, but he doesn't necessarily have to go d4, right? He could go, I don't know, b6 or something like that. So it's already time for me to sort of decide what I'm going to do in the center. So I'm not super familiar with this at this point. I'm taking on d5. Now what I do know is that if he goes e takes d5, I will play d4. And okay, I don't have to know all that much to understand the structure over here. This is an isolated pawn position, and this looks very safe for white. I'm going to move my knight probably knight d2, knight f3, or maybe I'll put it even on c3 and try to attack this pawn some more, but this is not something that I need to know all that much about to play a good game. Okay, my opponent plays knight takes d5. Now knight takes d5 is a more solid move because black wants to play bishop to f6, and of course he's not compromising his pawn structure. So if I go d4 now, which I did play, but if I go d4, then once he takes and I take back, which happened in the game, as we can see, he's not going to get an isolated pawn anytime soon. There are some options of that in the game. First of all, I must say this is not really a variation which is all that exciting, really. Black can play b6 as well, I found out later, and I think this is also very playable. I more or less have to develop my knight. He takes, he goes bishop to b7. I mean, as you can see, this is really not super exciting. It's a game. Okay, he took on d4. He played quite quickly still. And I found out that a couple of games of Kramnik were played here. And that's a good sign. So it shows that there's a little bit of play to what I'm doing over here without knowing it. Of course, I only found out after the game. But for example, Nakamura here played knight takes d4, which I don't really like. Queen takes d4 threatens mate on g7. And bishop to f6 is kind of the logical move. Queen at d2. And here he could exchange, but that would also invite white to play rook to d1. I mean, as you can see, the pawn structures here are fairly equal, right? What I'm playing for is this bishop on g2, which is always going to dominate the bishop on c8 if I play it well. Nakamura played the move bishop to d7. But here actually, Kramnik took on d5 and played rook d1. And again, we see kind of a isolated pawn structure. It's not that hard for play to play as white. I'm going to go bishop to d4, knight to c3. My king might be a little weak, but for the moment, I mean, he could put his bishop on h3, but it's far from mate, right? So again, this type of position I would be happy to play. So you can get into a little bit of trouble here as black. Another option was playing bishop to f6 immediately. This is always a question as black. You can play a little bit more actively, but you allow knight takes e6, b takes e6, which most grandmasters are not going to do that, because that's kind of a long-term weakness, right? So after takes, let's say queen to c1 is an interesting move. We could also take and play knight d2. It's a little bit better. Here we're playing for a trick as white, because after knight to c3, which looks very annoying, we have this move knight to e4. And later on in the game, we'll also see that these type of structures can happen. And generally, white is very happy to enter any kind of ending or any position if black is not too active, where he can just press on this pawn on c6 and sort of double up on that, maybe block it later on in the game. So this is white's dream. It's not something outstanding, but it will be very annoying for black to defend. So going back to the game, knight takes d4. He played bishop to d7. Now I can play bishop takes d5, but I don't like it that much because he hasn't exchanged the knights yet. So if I take on c6 here, he's going to play b takes, gets these hanging pawns, but these are a little bit more flexible because he can move it up to c5, and this can also become a strength later on in the game. Imagine he goes c5, d4, shuts out my bishop. I mean, this could be a good thing for black as well. So the more pieces there are on in these types of positions, if I don't have my bishop here, now my king can actually get a lot weaker. I just don't want to have too many pieces on in this position. So I decided not to go for bishop takes d5. Play knight to c3 instead in this position. So you might ask, like, okay, Robin, I mean, come on, you've announced that you're going to win the game. And here you are trying to exchange all the pieces. Kind of true, but still there's a little bit of venom in this position. I mean, if I play knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop takes c3, which was played in the game, the simplest move is to play knight takes d4, right? Try and exchange everything. But here we see these bishops are pretty nice. And again, bishop to c6, you can decide to do that. But after bishop takes c6, b takes c6, we're getting into that position again. And nobody likes to play these kind of positions where you're just struggling for equality for the rest of the game. And I have any weaknesses, I'm going to press on the c-pawn. Similar story as before. So he goes rook to c8. Much more solid move. Now he might have ideas to go knight takes d4 and bishop to c6 in some cases. But still, if he decides to do that, he might have to watch out for the a7 pawn. So, okay, I'm playing rook to c1. Now he took on d4 here, which is close to equal. It's all close to equal, but it's probably not the best move. He could have played bishop to a3 over here. And after rook c2, queen e7, now he actually has a nice square for his queen, where I can't really attack it. One of the things here is that if he goes queen b6 or something like that, I'm not quite sure, but I think there's moves such as knight to f5 to watch out for. So I'm attacking these. The bishop on d7 is hanging as well. And of course, you know, another thing that I might hope for is some sort of a position with the bishop pair. So in this position, I'm happy. Might not be much better, but I have the bishops. It's not going to be easy for him to exchange. He has a double pawn, so we'll play it. Instead, after bishop a3, rook c2, queen e7, now he's got the bishop covered. He's ready to go rook to d8, hit my queen. And this is a little bit awkward. I think this is fairly easy to equalize. For example, rook to d2, now bishop to c6. And after things related to bishop takes a7, we're having some sort of trick. Let me see what the trick is. So we have probably ideas with bishop to b4 over here, followed by rook to a8 and rook takes a2. There are some tricks here. Okay. Okay, another move here, by the way, to sort of make my point, is you can go b6. This is one of those cases where you're like, oh, the computer says bishop takes a7 is not a big deal, but okay, b6 followed by bishop c6, similar ideas. As you can see, not that much is, or am I blundering now? I'm blundering bishop takes c7. Okay, guys, let's just say that this position was not so easy. Maybe bishop to b4 was the right move, followed by bishop takes d2. So okay, something like this. But as you can see, I'm trying to equalize as black and I'm making blunders. So this can happen to my opponent as well. Proving my point in a funny way. Okay, so he goes knight takes d4 now. Queen takes d4. Okay, bishop takes d4 is possible, but then he might take on c1, go something like queen to b8. And again, it's very little. If he can, once again, if he can exchange the light squared bishops, then it's really done. Then my advantage is gone. This is my main source of hoping for anything. So I go queen takes, because he might exchange the dark squared bishops, but I still have a little bit of pressure over here. So queen at d3 is what I played. And actually, he had a very strong move over here, which I'm going to give you and the viewers online just a minute to see how this is the position in the game. I allowed something which I shouldn't have allowed. My opponent didn't go for it, but there's a nice little move that helps him to equalize over here. Yes? Bishop to b5, okay. Tricky move. Oh. Bishop to b5, let's see. Well, first of all, what happens if I take on c8? Is this working? I'm not sure, because if you take on d3, you take on d8, you have a lot of pieces hanging, and I still have this rook over here, right? So that's not good. And if you take on c8 with the queen, I'm taking your bishop. Seems to work out for white. If you take on d3 with the queen, take on f8 with check, right? So it doesn't quite solve your problems. Now, some of you probably saw my move, but anyone wants to suggest what the best move is instead of bishop to b5? Yeah?
Bishop c6.
Bishop c6. Oh, but then you're getting into the position that I love, right? Over here. Are we defending this one again? I mean, it's not that bad for black. I'll agree about that, but something to play for here. Something to play for. Because also, let's not forget, if you're trying to become active over here, I've got that minor advantage, which is actually quite important now that after taking on c6, you're still dealing with the back rank mate. So, again, it's little, but I would gladly play it. Now, black could make use of a tactic over here. Queen f6. That's a pretty good move, I would say. Very close to the idea that I'm thinking of. If I take on c8 and I go rook to d1, the slight difference to what my suggestion is that I wouldn't have time for rook to d1 now, which I'm still sort of at least preventing your rook on f8 to get into the game. And if you play b6, who knows? I might have time to create something like queen d6, queen c7. Again, we're playing for very slight advantages, but maybe even some kind of some other move, because your bishop can't move, your rook can move, so you're dealing with some small problems here. What I'm talking about is actually the move queen to a5. And this is very clever. Now queen to a5, same idea as queen f6. I can take on d7 because the rook's hanging, and after rook takes c8, bishop takes c8. Again, you might say, okay, I don't have that much squares, I want to go rook to d1, but the a2 pawn is hanging, right? So that's a small difference, but in this case, I might have to go a4, you go rook to d8, and now we see, okay, on the next move, you're probably going to go g6 or h6, and we're really talking about an equal position at this point. So I have to be very careful with white. I mean, it's minor things that are keeping me still continuing this game and pushing a little bit. So he should have played queen to a5. I missed it, honestly. He played rook takes c3 instead. I was very happy to see this move. I take back, and again, queen to b6. He wants to go rook to c8. If he goes rook c8 and bishop c6, well, we know by now it's probably going to be equal. And so, which move do you think I played? Yeah? Very good. Played rook to c1. Again, we still have a little bit of a back rank issue, right? So rook c8, queen takes c8, we're winning. What would you do as black in this position? You know, knowing that you want to play rook c8, you can't quite yet. Yep. G6. Smart guy. My opponent didn't play g6, but I think g6 might be a better move. Now, I can't quite explain this to you yet because it will give away a lot of the exercise that's about to come. But keep this in mind. Why could g6 maybe be a little bit better than h6? You can already try to think about it a little bit. h6 is also very logical, right? So he goes h6. Yes? Bishop e4? Okay, I mean, there might be something of the sort that I could hopefully one day get to here, or at least I can prevent his king from coming to h7, right? So that's the reason. But there's a little bit more to it than that. So first of all, in this position, again, it's my move, right? And actually, in these types of games, you'd be surprised. Maybe if you see a position like this, and I don't want to compare myself to any of these players, but who is really good at these players? Magnus Carlsen, Karpov, you know, guys who sometimes are considered to have a slightly boring style. The interesting thing about this is that, in my opinion, these types of positions require the most calculation out of all of them. They require calculation, you need to be very good at tactics, because as you can see, every single move has to be on point. I already made a couple of moves that are, you know, so-so. I allowed queen to a5. Magnus Carlsen would probably find a way to stop queen a5 and keep that small pressure that I have right now. But for me, right now, it's, you know, it's getting a bit later. Maybe it's 1 o'clock at this point. Actually, it's not 1 o'clock. It's probably more like 12. And I'm feeling a little... No, it's not. Guys, it's like 10 o'clock. Sorry. It's 10 o'clock. I remember how I felt here. So it's 10 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, I'm still happy. I'm sipping my coffee. I'm, you know, waking up a little bit. And I'm liking my position because it's very risk-free. I'm not losing today. But I still promised my team I should win, so that's not really holding up today. I mean, this guy's got like 27-40, which a draw is normally it's okay, right? Although I should be ambitious, but I actually said that I was going to win, so what do I do now? Okay, I see an interesting idea over here. I see queen to e5. Can anyone tell me why queen to e5 might be an interesting move or a strong move? Yep. I'm going to play rook c7 probably. Do you know why I cannot play queen to c7 over here? Rook to c8, right? Let's have a quick look at that. Queen c7 looks very nice, right? Because if I can exchange this, then well, this is probably over already. I'm attacking everything. But he has this good idea, rook to c8. So he's using a little bit of tactics as well to defend himself. Now, if I take the bishop, my rook on c1's hanging. So okay, I can't do that. But rook to c7 looks nice, indeed. So I'm thinking, okay, he could go f6, for example. But f6, I can go queen to e4, attacking his b7 pawn. And if he goes bishop to c6, now suddenly it already shows that his position is a little bit loose, right? E6 pawn is hanging. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll be very brave and jump into here if it's possible. Like, there's some weaknesses around his king. He doesn't want to play f6 here. So how does black solve his problems at this point? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about this, because this is actually a tough position. If you want to, I can even switch the board, but I'm probably not going to. I'm going to make it really hard for you. But think about this for a couple of minutes. How do we defend here as black? Have we already come to the point where it looks like it's, you know, almost nothing, but maybe we're in trouble? You got an idea? Rook c8. Okay, so after rook c8, probably have to take that, right? I mean, how much I can do here? Do I have any ideas over here? Yep. Queen to b8, right? Not that easy. In fact, we're doing really quite bad here as black. I mean, we have this pin over here. We need to defend it one way or another, and no matter where we go, we're going to play bishop takes b7, so any normal move loses. And even on top of that, if it doesn't lose, then the a pawn will be hanging. So this shows that the natural move doesn't quite work. So I was feeling very proud at this point in the game. I was like, okay, if he finds a defense, that's cool. But I managed to put some pressure on him, you know? I really tried my best. Any other ideas? My opponent spent some time over here. He came up with a very tactical idea. So my question to you is, what move do we want to play really, really badly, and why are we not playing it? Which move would we love to play here as black?
Bishop c6.
Bishop c6.
Yeah.
What's the problem with it?
Create that weakness that you keep talking about, isolated c-pawn.
Right, I create that weakness that I'm talking about. So after bishop c6, takes, I'm going to go something like queen to c5, and it's not going to be very nice, right? I mean, you're going to sit on this pawn, you're not going to be able to move too much, not too much counterplay, so we don't like that. But hold on a second. Do we have to take back? Rook c8, right? So this is exactly what happened in the game. I mean, I got to take on c6, right? And then rook to c8 happens. Now, in all honesty, what's about to happen here, in my opinion, is still like I'm surprised at how complicated this position is. But I will be very honest, I didn't see this idea of bishop to c6 and rook c8. I missed it. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time, and I advise the viewers as well to do so, and figure out what exactly is going on here. Because black wants to, you know, we know what black's move is going to be on the next move. And I can give you one hint. Okay, he's going to play rook takes c6. If I play just any move, I go rook c2 or something, and he goes for this, let's say. Now with the queens on, it's not quite the same. First of all, I can't block the pawn on c5, but also with just queens, it's much easier for me to, or for black to create some counterplay. The only way for me to make progress over here is to bring my king over, right? But that's very ambitious. I mean, while I'm doing that, in the course of doing that, probably some pawns are going to be hanging and so on. So in the queen ending, it's a whole different ball game. This is very drawish. So let's keep that in mind and try to figure out how do we make something out of this as white. Okay, let's say rook to c4. And if he takes, then maybe check. here, and which move would you like to play? Rook to f4 or something like that? Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of initiative. I think you should be able to protect against this. Maybe even something slightly passive like rook to c7 would suffice. Also, I have to be a bit careful, not that I get checked on c1 and queen c6 check. Probably right now it's still okay. We can play f3. Although, you know, there could be some counterplay over here. Imagine I go queen to b5, and I'm hitting this pawn. It doesn't seem like I'm quite in control over here, but the suggestion is decent. So again, let's have a look at this position. Rook to c4 definitely feels like one of the more active moves, right? If anyone has ideas to improve on the line or a different idea. So is this just a draw, guys? I mean, that would be a bit embarrassing, right? Given the story. Yeah. I played the move rook to c4. My opponent, you know, those guys have good poker faces, by the way, those 2,700 players. But my opponent, he got a little bit shocked suddenly. I could tell. So he saw something. I had seen it at this point as well. Some traps. And what happened here is very strange. He was thinking and thinking and thinking, I think 30 or 40 minutes. I came to the board and I saw that he's not comfortable, and he suddenly plays the move b takes c6. So okay, first of all, b takes c6. I mean, this is the position that we like, right? Here we have some chances. But there is more to it. This is actually the worst moment to play b takes c6 that we've seen so far. Why is this the worst moment? The rook on c, yeah, it's passive, sure, but there's something very concrete here. This is a lost position.
I think it's just what she's saying, that you can slide the rook over to g4 maybe, and just threaten mate, and then follow the natural. Okay.
If I go rook takes g6, right? Very good. So rook takes g6 suddenly. Not only is it passive, it's just hanging, and I got this queen ending with 2 pawns up. Well, you know, I know how to win that. That shouldn't be too hard, right? So, okay, this is what happened, but this is not the end of the story. g5 was played. Okay, that doesn't lose immediately, but here I go queen to f6. I'm attacking the h-pawn. King h7, queen takes f7 check. It's all falling apart, right? So over here, I don't even have to find really hard moves at this point. He resigned. So, well, that was nice. You know, I kept my promise. Teammates came up to me. This game ended in about 2 hours. I don't want to brag, but I'm very proud of it. But what exactly is going on here? Because after the game, I got a lot of messages from my friends, a lot of them professional chess players, saying, "Ah, Robin, you lucky guy, you know, he just blundered, like, that was nothing." So, you know, why did they all say that? Well, I'm going to do something very risky right now, and I hope it's going to work. I'm going to turn on the engine and see what it says. .60. I mean, that's not winning, right? 0.80. If you take another engine, it's going to say 0.20. That's what the engine online said when the game was broadcasted. So there's something that engines don't see. Now, in my experience, the only thing that engines really don't see sometimes when you don't let them run for too long is something very, very deep. So we're about to do something really, really deep. A very deep line. So rook takes c6 is the obvious move, right? This was the whole idea. Why didn't he play this move? Yeah?
I was thinking about this. So about queen b8, and then when he goes away, you can take on c6.
Take on c6.
And if he takes with the queen to a7, pawn is hanging. But if he takes with the b pawn, then when you take on, if he takes with the pawn, then when you take on b6, then you can create an outside pass pawn. I was trying to decide if this was winning or not.
Very good. So this is what he was thinking about, right? One more time. I play queen b8 check, king h7. Very, very good. Great job. Play queen b8 check, king h7. Now he's got to decide how to take back. If he goes queen takes c6, okay, sure, it's only a pawn. He might have some drawing chances, but there's nothing very direct over here that's going to give him a draw. For example, he can give a check with f3. Okay, the game is going on here. So he definitely didn't want to go for this because the chances are, let's say, 50-50 that he loses it or that he draws it. So b takes c6 is what you would like to play. And the engines initially said, okay, this is just a draw, right? So let's have a look. How do you want to create the outside pass pawn? What's the most obvious move? I hear a4. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I think you can start with
Yeah, a4. Okay, actually, we're not actually going to make the outside pass pawn. It's not that simple. If he goes a4, I mean, sure, if he brings the king, then it's over, right? b4, a5, my pawn is, you know, much faster, and my king can defend against the c pawn. Life's good. But he goes c5. Now, the same goes for if we go b4, he goes b5, right? So we got to decide. But let's say he goes, I go a4, c5. How do we evaluate this position? Especially, you know, coming all the way back from when still queen b8 check and so has to be played. The easiest way to figure out what's going on in such a position is to really, really boil it down to the most forcing moves. So I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes, if you're not too tired. Try to find not like, you know, something interesting, something nice. I want you to really, really find the most forcing moves. If I play this move, he has to play that move. Then I play this move, he's forced to do this. Try to go as far as possible with that, and we'll get you to the solution. King f1, okay. So what's your idea with king f1? Okay, so king f1, what does black do? King g8 or king g6? I'm gonna go king g6. e4, okay, I'm gonna keep running. Oh, e4, king f6. King e2, king e5. King d3. Now you gotta, you know, it's very tricky, but I think I can play g5. Let's just say it's interesting. King c4 is possible, king takes e4, king b5, and then king f3 and my e-pawn is running. This is a crazy line. Let's not go too far. But my point is that we've played e4, and I like the move e4, but it's giving us some options. You know, I don't have to play g5. I could maybe go king d6, could maybe go f5. Let's try to keep it really, really simple, okay? Yeah.
I started with f4, so you can stop his king.
Now, what I want from you guys is really, really the most straightforward line. What do we really want to achieve here as white? What's our ideal? A passed pawn, sure. Or we want to win a pawn at least, something like that. What is the main tool? Like if we can use like a parachute right now, and we're not talking about pawns obviously, because then you would put on a7 or d7 or whatever. If we can parachute our king right now to some place on the board where it's feasible. b5. So let's get the king to b5. If the king comes to b5, we're pretty sure we're winning. This was my logic when I was trying to calculate this. What's the fastest way to b5? We can go f1 or we can go g2. It's not rocket science. It's two ways. Yeah?
When you play king b2, you're trying to shoulder him.
Shouldering, very good. You've been reading some chess books. So what happens if we go king f1, right? He goes king here, and he's going to shoulder us, right? E4 is a different story. But we're trying to keep it simple. That's not what we want. But now we're shouldering him. So we see this position. And funny thing is, now we're getting the same position with the king on d3. But what's the advantage of having the king on d3? e4 check. Getting a little closer to b5, right? So now we're getting this position. Of course, black has lots of moves, but the most obvious move is stopping us from gaining space with e5, because that's going to limit his amount of moves significantly. So he's going to play e5. Now, believe it or not, I got to this point after a while, and here it's a matter of, you know, it's really a matter of who can make the last move here, right? Because imagine just to show you the idea, he goes king to c7, king b5. If we can make this work one way or another, he goes a5, takes, we take, king a6, king c6. Now this would be a draw if all the pawns on the king side were taken off, right? Because he goes a4. But we know that that's not going to be the case. There's going to be something to run towards. So in this position, if he has to make another move and we both run out on moves on the king side, he's going to play here, and that's it. Oh, king to b5, and we're good. We're winning. So how do we figure out which move to play over here? And this is what the computers initially don't see. Computers.
Then he has to play f6 and then f5, and then he has to play h5.
Okay, so f4 is interesting. And your line's working. f6, f5, h5 is my only move. And let's say h4, huh? And we're getting this, I think. I'm not even 100% sure because this one you might get to quicker than this, but let's say if this works, all right. The annoying thing is he's gonna take, and like play, I don't know, probably g6. And now it's getting really, really hard to, I mean, first of all, to calculate, but also I'm not even sure it's winning, right? Because one of the easy ways here, e5, h5, actually this probably works. This probably works. This probably works. What? Okay, do we have other moves over here? Yeah? Ah, okay. So question is, okay, is this winning? I think there is a defense. Might not be g6. There might be f6 as well. I'm not sure about f6. Again, this is really hard to calculate. f5, h5, and if we're doing our trick now, again, we're going for this type of position, right? Imagine we're getting here. Okay, it might be winning. Don't quote me on this, but it might be just on time, right? Might be. But again, I'm trying to look for the easiest way here. I'm trying to look for the very easiest way. Because f4 allows a lot of options, right? And we're bringing it back almost 20 moves now, so.
King d3?
King d3, that's the type of position thing, like maybe we could try to triangulate, something clever like that. But the problem is that whenever we remove our king, there's b5. And now we're not really getting what we want, so better probably not touch the king. g4, okay, can you? I mean, g4 is very straightforward. Now we can move our f and our h pawn, so it's kind of easy to calculate, right?
Yeah, I'll be playing g6.
Oh. h4? h4. h4, h5, f4. Yeah, again, this is one of the positions that I would never be sure about it in the game. And I could have all analyzed it and told you, yeah, this is obvious, but I like to keep it a little bit realistic, right? I still don't have a clue, basically. So over here, okay, if we go king d6, he runs to our b pawn, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. Again, it's probably winning. It looks like it's winning, yeah. Looks like it's winning. Yeah, should be a win as well. So after h4, the only thing I know is that it's not. So it might be g6 again. Now you can probably go g4, which looks very similar to the move you suggest. If g4 here, which was my solution at the time, g4 here, g6, then h4. So h4 maybe is a good alternate solution. Does black have any other moves after g4? Not really, right? Because if we go g5,
You have one more move.
right, so h3, f6, f3, right? So to make this a little bit more fun, before I round up, let's try to find out why h4 is not working. Let's take a couple minutes. I mean, the people online are surely going to find out, but let's try to find out why it's not working.
They always cheat using engines.
They always cheat using engines, right? G6, G4 looks like it's, I think it's something like H5, F4,
Yeah, and then take.
and then takes, exactly, takes. I think we're pretty much bound to play F6 or G6. F6, F5, F6, F5, and here we start again. I'm not quite sure. We take, king c6. Looks like we're always on time over here. This should be winning as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of Zugzwang positions, honestly. It's not really the point of the exercise at the end of the day. It's more about trying to find a way which you can evaluate easily from the start. And for that reason, in my opinion, g4, and the people online might find the real defense, g4 is the right move, because it prevents h5. G5 is obvious. f6, what do we play after f6? h4, g6, h5, very good. And again, we have Zugzwang, right? So who could have known? That's really my point over here. And I'm very sorry for still not knowing about all the details of the ending, but I like it that way because this is really how I thought about it during the game. And I will study it one day, but it doesn't fit the story, right? I didn't really know what's going on in the game. I saw g4, that's all I remember. I did find g4. The other alternate solutions are a bit more complicated. So, but who could have known in this position that there's so much more to it than you can see at first sight? And well, once again, I was quite proud of this game. I thought it was a funny story and an interesting game. And most of all, it was a very, very sweet revenge. So thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask.